What's up, guys? It's back with the Pack podcast at it again.
Minus one member, Ben Graves, didn't show. So
He's
we've
he's
got a
he's like
hardcore pack here. Let's
he's like
ice.
he's like the pilot in this book.
Yep. All right. Oh, whoa. All right.
Whoa.
Let's let's
I'm
get into
Jack, by the
this.
way.
I'm Chase. Let's get into this. Our first topic is just overall what we've read to in the Lord of the Flies so far. We are currently from chapter 1 to chapter 8, and we're just gonna be discussing all about it. And
All right.
also after that, what we think will be, expectations and predictions.
Yes, for the rest of the book. Starting off just in chapter one. So I think a big thing we should look at as we go through chapter one through eight. So we should look at chapter names and titles. Starting off with chapter one, the sound of the shell.
Hmm.
And we already know, and this is kind of a thing we can kind of see what the author does, William Golding. He likes to use the chapters to really talk about significant things that are going to be in the rest of the book. Because as we know, the shell is a constant of rules. It's a symbol of rules on the island, as everyone's supposed to listen to the shells when someone is talking. And we'll later see how things change when people decide to break the rules. But yeah, starting off with that, the boys crash land, and it starts with Ralph and Piggy finding a shell.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I mean, it's a good title because it really reflects on what we've seen so far in the book. Early on in the book, it was really not much action until they thought of the idea of the conch shell, and it brought the whole it did bring the whole group together because that's when everyone met on the beach after hearing the sound of the conch go off. So I think
Yeah,
that's a title. It's a really important thing to note about.
I really like what you just said there about that because it not only did it physically bring them together, the sound of it, but it metaphorically brought them together in the sense of like it brought them together literally as a group to
Yep.
become a tribe and create a leader, really. And by talking about the group, this is where we see the first dynamic of people. And the way I have it listed when I first read this initially was I have Ralph at the top as the tribal chief. I have
Yep.
Jack and Simon as his two sidemen. I have the hunters as being an extension of Jack as the hunter and their group. They're above everyone. I have the
Yep.
general population. And then I have Piggy. I don't have Piggy as below everyone, but I have him in his own bubble, not connected to anyone. Because yes, the others may view him as lower, but he knows in himself that he's confident in himself.
Yeah, I feel like Piggy's a key character here. I mean, he's evidently the most intelligent out of all of them. He just throughout the whole book, dating to like I think it might have been chapter 7, he notices when the little boy went missing. He just knows the small things. He's just more intelligent, and I think a good point to bring up is how he's the only one there with glasses, which glasses are usually a sign of it, like just I don't know I don't know, it's just like intelligence. So I think that's some symbolism right there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know what you're trying to say about that. I think the glasses also are a sign of like it's funny. Glasses usually means you can't see well, but
Yeah.
glasses also are a sign of like clarity because you're
Yeah.
able to see well because of them. I think Piggy kind of has that. And I think when they crack his glasses, it's showing that Ralph, Simon, Jack are all kind of they're cracking his glasses. They're just trying to impair his ability because they kind of almost they see him as more mature and they almost view him as a threat. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
really
feel like you can go after you.
what.
I'll go. I feel like they all have like their own strong suits. Like he's so they all kind. I feel like from what I read, and what I understood is they all want to be the leader. They all want to kind of rule everyone and have. I mean, they're young kids, which is understandable. They all kind of want to have that leadership role, and I mean, I think they're all just fighting against each other, and I'm like, messing with the glasses, making fun of him, all of them trying to be dominant and take down what he was known to have, and which is being intelligent.
Yeah, I think they use him as the scapegoat to what their issue is right now, and
Yeah.
just use him as a way to kind of get rid of some steam they have. Uh, I think we should go on to the next chapter unless you have anything more to say.
Yep.
The next one, the title of it's Fire on the Mountain, and I think this one is insignificant right now, but I think when we were talking about how we're gonna make predictions, I think it's gonna be significant in the long run. Like besides the fact that they pretty much um believe it's this chapter, that they pretty much uh, burn down the whole island or half of it, which they did by by the fire on the mountain. I think this is more gonna be a sign of like later something's gonna happen on the mountain that's a lot more dangerous because this is really just because we've seen a trend of like literal things happening, such as uh the conch blowing and then the metaphorical thing happening too. So I think the literal thing is the actual mountain burning, but I think something metaphorical is gonna happen involving the mountain.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these chapter titles and just a lot of things throughout this book, you see things go from useful objects to not like kind of harmful objects, like the conch shell. It went from being, helping everyone get together and taking turns talking, but then it transitioned into like power and, rule over everyone. And then also the fire, from what I think it was used to help be rescued and, give like a signal, and then it was like you said, your prediction, it'll later on harm them.
Yeah, it's interesting because it just shows that everything they try to do is kind of ruining them, and it shows like what people's values are as people. And this one, this book is a very much if you almost could read this book from the end to the finish, you'd have the most clarity you could ever read because
Yeah.
how much this book foreshadows.
Yes.
It's it's insane. Like everything, it's like Ralph only focusing on the fire, and we see Jack saying slight things. So we already know there's a conflict, and there's a fire causing on the mountain, and we know that they're going to disagree. More and more arguments are going to happen. Eventually, they're going to split up, which we know later happens. It's just interesting how this book really foreshadows everything that's going to happen, and even like a prediction that I think I have, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I think they're talking about always hunting and killing pigs. There's a guy
Mhm.
named Piggy on the island. I think
Oh,
Piggy's going to eventually die due to them because they're
I didn't think about that. That's really interesting. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I'm not sure if there's a title after Piggy, but it seems like a common occurring thing that maybe the titles are foreshadowing, small events in the chapter to later on being bigger events and more meaningful things than it was
no,
before.
no, yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's like I just think I think this Golding does a very great job at that for
Yeah,
foreshadowing. Are
foreshadows
you
a
ready?
ton. I feel like a lot of things in this book have a symbolism, and you don't notice in the moment, but later on, a lot of things are more meaningful.
Yeah. Are you ready to go on the next one?
Yeah.
So the next two chapters are kind of quick ones, and they're more just things to kind of give you to kind of give showing the passing of time. Huts on the Beach is one, and the next one is Painted Faces, Long Hair. I mean,
Mhm.
Huts on the Beach to
Wait, what's
quickly
the thing? What's
summarize.
what's the fourth one?
Painted Faces, and Long Hair. Uh, Huts on the Beach to quickly summarize is pretty much just literally as it's them deciding
Yeah,
they
it's
need
just where
somewhere to
they're
live,
living all together. Yeah.
but it's pretty important because it's like that's a mature decision to decide to actually go and build something.
Mhm.
And then you see the painted faces and long hair is an immediate change of painted faces is like kind of tribalistic.
Mhm.
Um, and long hair it just kind of shows a sign of wilderness, but it's really these are just telling us like Huts on the Beach is showing they know they're gonna be there in the long run, and long hair is basically saying like it's been months. They have long hair now.
Yeah, although compared to like the last ones, like the fire and all that, those ones are straight up like understandable of foreshadowing. These ones I feel like they dig deeper, like long hair and Hudson the Beach, like showing that they'll be there for a long time. I think a lot of these titles can have a ton of different interpretations, but I don't know. I think it's just unique how all these chapter titles are could be perceived in many different ways.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right about that. But yeah, I don't think much happens that crazy in those chapters itself. It's more just what can you
Yeah, it's
dig
more
into
just
in it.
who's going to be our leader and where we're living. And
Yeah. So I think we could go straight into the next ones then.
yeah,
And the next two are very closely tied together, and they are it's gonna be Beast from water and Beast from
mhm,
air. And straight away, we already know the problem with the Beast has been going on the island for a while,
yeah,
and we know as mature, more mature than them kids, we know the Beast is it could be anything. It could be a snake. It's just in their head. It's really what it really is.
mhm,
And we are pretty much confirmed on this by these two chapters. Beast from water basically is saying they saw something in the water, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Beast from air is the pilot's dead body flying through the sky,
Yep.
and they thought it was a phantom, a demon, something.
Hmm.
And that's basically there's one very big thing, like I said from these two titles, um, is Beast from Water is basically closing off the water because the water typically has been a sign of hope,
Hmm.
as it's the place where his Ralph's dad's gonna come save them from. But now the beast is coming from the water, so the water is no longer a sign of hope. It's no longer a safe space. The
Yeah.
air, the air. So right now their island, the mountain has already closed them off because they burned it down. The water's closed them off. So now all they have left is to look up. But now there's a beast coming from air. So it's now they're trapped on all sides. And
Hmm.
it kind of gives them the feeling of like they're running out of time, so it's closing in on them, which in reality it's their own heads that are closing in on them. And that's what's I think these chapters symbolize.
Yeah, I feel like these chapter titles really are a symbolism of them losing consciousness and being like, "Oh my God, we're losing our only exits, our only routes out." And I think, like looking at it from our perspective and not being there with not a lot of food and water, I think we can evidently see be like, it's not coming from the water, it's not from the sky. It's just you losing your mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna like later when even gonna go further to show it's like I think it's also a combination of them all together because you look at when they actually go up to the mountain and find the beast, which is just the dead pilot's body, and they
Hmm.
see it's just hunched over. It's literally just a dead, well, yeah, it's a dead body, and like it's a big deal. But like they thought it was a beast who was crouching, waiting to pounce on them. It was in reality, there's a, as we know, there's a parachute, there's everything there, but they decided to wait till nighttime, so maybe they couldn't see it. But it's really just about like that's, I mean, it's the problem is it's all in their head. It really is. Like their head
Yeah.
is holding them back. Their biggest enemy and their downfall is going to be themselves.
Hmm.
Um, you want to go into the next chapters?
Yeah.
Um, the next chapter 7 is shadows and tall trees, and I think that one we kind of just went over with the
With the
pilot
pilot and beast.
shadows and the tall trees, and I was catching on to the trees and all that. So
Hmm.
chapter 8 though is pretty significant because, in my opinion, of one man, and his name is Simon. And chapter 8 is gift for the darkness, which we know is just the hunt and how the darkness is now the beast, by the way. It's
Hmm.
it's almost like they're acknowledging it's in their head now because the beast is the darkness, and what's in the darkness is what we don't know. So really, they're just calling it the unknown, and basically they go on a hunt and give the pig head as a gift. And what do you think about this chapter? Because it's this one, get to the Simon part later, but just the general chapter, what do you think?
I feel like this chapter is really important because it's a transition from signs of losing consciousness and being like, oh, overreacting, but now it's just like they actually are talking to the Lord of the Flies and all that, and it's coming like actual literal. And I think this could like if it keeps following the steps it's following later on, like it'll be very bad, and I think there'll be various amounts of death if it keeps following the trends they're following of it getting worse, the consciousness.
Yeah, this one is like what were you saying about how they're actually talking to him. This is literally this is where they go straight to the deep end.
Mhm.
Simon saying so Simon's in there and they're saying um Simon's talking to him and the Lord of the Flies says to him, "You are a silly little boy, just an ignorant, silly little boy. Aren't you just a silly little boy?" Like they repeat these words, little boy, all these
Yeah,
things. It's the Lord of the Flies. And that's where I kind of got the idea that the Lord of the Flies is kind of like because it's in their head. Like obviously, this pig on that stick is it's a pig's head on a stick. It's not talking.
yeah,
Um, it's the first time Lord of the Flies is mentioned, by the way, which is interesting. But anyways, Simon's talking to them, and it's really just his head talking back to him,
yeah,
being like calling you things. And it's really just them telling, like realizing, like they do need an adult there, because he's telling himself, like you're just a silly little boy, like which is true. They are like they are not
exactly.
mature. Like they like literally. it's them kind of striving for in a parent, something to help them. Like it's him saying, the Lord of the Flies says, my poor misguided child, the voice of a schoolmaster. It's them just kind of looking for something, looking for an authority to them. And that's why they look towards Ralph and Jack. But in reality, Ralph and Jack are also looking towards authority. So they can never really help themselves. And the Lord of just Simon recognizes this, but Simon is too quiet to actually be able to explain this. And if he was maybe able to articulate his thoughts more, like Piggy can, they would actually probably be able to kind of help themselves get this mental block out of their head, but they can't.
Yeah, I feel like this is a more into-depth theme that we've seen earlier of leadership and just being, having authority. I mean, like early on, they obviously all want to be the chief and all that. But now, like the Lord of the Flies, he's asserting his dominance, like you said, by saying like, "Oh, you little boy" and stuff like that. And I feel like this whole book is just being about like having leadership and being dominant. Like early on, when they used to make fun of Piggy to make him feel worse, to make themselves feel better, and they used to hate on each other just to make themselves have the higher, be a step higher and be just better than the rest. I feel like this is a reoccurring theme.
Yeah, I think this is where we can kind of look into Golding's background as a writer, and as we know, he's a school teacher, and it really shows this is exactly what he sees in classrooms. It's
Yeah,
just kids picking on kids to make themselves feel better. You pick the easiest target, so you're not the target. I mean, it's a tale as old as time in that sense. And I guess this next conversation we can more save for our next episode of do we think that's how it would really go? Was Golding correct?
hmm.
Um, yeah, but before we get to that, I mean, I think we should talk about before we end is what do we think is going to happen?
So I like what you said earlier about the Piggy prediction. I mean, why would his name be Piggy? I've never really thought about it like that, and they're all about killing pigs, continuously being pigs. So I think that's a great foreshadowing. If he does end up dying and getting killed, I think that's amazing foreshadowing that completely flew over my head.
Yeah, I just think it sounds right because especially because the way they talk. Um,
Yeah,
I don't have the exact quote, but there's like a couple scenes where they're like kill the pig, they do a chant and it's all centered on killing the pig and like they even like get people to reenact the pig's death. And eventually I think they're just gonna go off the wall, have Piggy reenact and they're actually gonna stab him.
yeah.
And the way this book is going, for all I know, they're gonna eat him too. But I wouldn't
Ugh.
be surprised if that's how they went with this and it got like disturbing really quick, but it also could just be Piggy dies. I don't know what it's gonna be. I just definitely think Piggy's gonna die due to something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a missed opportunity if they honestly thinking about it now if they didn't have Piggy dying. I mean, it's kind of set up perfectly,
Oh my
and
God.
I mean, it's kind of set up perfectly. I feel like it has to happen, low key.
Especially with this guy being like the king of foreshadowing. He's gotta do it.
Oh, I yeah, I think.
If
And
he
also, I think another some other foreshadowing we have to look into is I lost my train of thought. Hold on, wait, let me think about it real quick.
what you're
I was thinking
thinking, I'd kill Piggy.
you would.
If I was the writer. If I was the writer. I would make
Wait.
him die in this.
Oh, so I think my prediction is that so how come only Simon, is losing this much consciousness, right? I think, I don't think it's really that deep. I think he's honestly just having it a little sooner than the rest. But I think they're all end up losing consciousness and just losing control of what like they're thinking and all. I think we'll see a lot of blood.
You don't think we'll see or you think we
I
will?
think we will see a lot of blood because I think they'll all lose consciousness and just all freak out.
Yeah, I think they're all gonna
And they'll
start
start
just
listening to the animals and start killing the humans.
yeah, I think they're gonna all I think this could get so crazy that we're just gonna start seeing like they might just start killing themselves.
Yeah,
I know that's crazy, but
it's
like
crazy that losing consciousness
but
is.
like it's like they're letting it's not I don't even think they're giving up, like they're subconsciously
Yeah,
making something else in their head becoming their enemy so they can blame why they're losing on something, even though they're losing because of themselves.
yeah.
Pretty deep.
All right, I think it's a good spot to wrap it up with
Yep.
our first episode of the podcast. And I believe our second one is going to be, what was it again?
On do we think this would actually happen?
Yeah, we're gonna be going diving deep into our opinions on if we were in the situation, if others were in the situation, how we truly think it would go down, and you
All
know,
of that. Human
yeah,
nature, human
yep, and
nurture.
maybe how we would narrate the story different from Golding.
Maybe what we would do if we us personally were on the island even.
Yep.
And maybe a special bonus
All
part
right.
of like what we would bring on an island if we could pick three items.
All right. We're the pack, and we'll be
And
back.
we bet. Well, we're leaving now, but